from 1959 to 1972. Okay. The first, give me a minute. The first event that we'll be presenting today is the 15th International Air Transport Association meeting in Tokyo, for which the IATA, which is a global thing, in every country there is IATA regulations according to which the airlines operate. So now this stamp that you see here was released on 1959, October 12th, 30 by 26 millimeters, a bright greenish blue. And then it is printed in Reese's printing. The major annual event for the aviation gathered the top leadership from airlines, the aviation value chain, and governments as the aviation industry faces complex and dynamic operating, business, and geopolitical environments. IATA's mission is to represent, lead, and serve the airline industry. The general meeting is held at different number of member countries, and this one was held on the 15th in Tokyo in 1959. Then the 15th session of the contracting parties of GATT, GATT, Tokyo, which is GATT is nothing other than General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade, was multilateral agreement regulating international trade. According to its preamble, its purpose was the substantial reduction of tariffs and other trade barriers and the elimination of preferences on a reciprocal and mutually advantageous basis. To celebrate this 15th session, a 10-yen stamp was released for the event on 1959, November 2nd, when this was held in Tokyo, 39 by 28 millimeters, a brown red stamp with printed in photogravure. Okay. It was negotiated during the United Nations Conference on Trade and Employment and was outcome of the failure of negotiating governments to create the International Trade Organization, ITO. GATT was signed by 23 nations in Geneva on October 30th, 1947, and took effect on January 1st, 1948. It lasted until the signature by 123 nations in Marrakesh in April 14, 1994, of the Uruguay Round Agreements, which established the World Trade Organization, WTO, on January 1st, 1995. Then completion of Ozaki Memorial Hall. Ozaki's life coincided with century transformation of Japan's history of finding an identity as a nation state and founding of the base of the democratic government. Born on November 28, 1858, the eldest son of a loyalist, he was soon thrust into the mainstream of national reform and destined to play a part in the country's history. In 1885, he was elected to the Tokyo Prefectural Assembly, then in first national election 1890 to the parliament. He served as the Minister of Justice and Minister of Education. When Lord Mayor of Tokyo, an office he held concurrently with that of the Member of the Parliament 1903-1912, Ozaki gifted the flowering cherry trees to the United States as a memorial of friendship. On February 25, 1960, Ozaki Memorial Hall and Clock Tower was built in front of the Diet, that's the Japanese parliamentary building. Okay. Now, the 1250th anniversary of the meeting of moving the capital to Nara. The Nara period, or what you call as Nara Jidai, of the history of Japan covers the years from c. 7110 to 794. Empress Genmei established the capital at Heijinkyo, present-day Nara, and except for a 5-year period, 1740 to 745, when the capital was briefly moved again, it remained as the capital of Japanese civilization until Emperor Kammu established the new capital at Nagawakakyo in 1784, before moving to Heian-kyo, the modern Kyoto, a decade later in 1794. Okay, and the Japanese society during this period was predominantly agricultural and centered on a village life. Most of the villagers followed Shinto, a religion based on the worship of natural ancestor spirits named Kami. The capital at Nara was modeled after Chang'an, the capital city of Tang dynasty, and adopted Chinese Buddhism. This beautiful stamp, a Tenon stamp, released in 1960, March 10th, shows the spotted deer, a pair of them, and it was 26 by 30 millimeters olive gray stamp, and it's a photograph you printed, Tenon stamp. Then the centenary of Japan-US Amity and Conference Treaty. The Treaty of Amity and Conference between Japan and the United States, also called as the Harris Treaty, was a treaty signed between the United States and Tokugawa Shogunate, which opened the ports of Kanagawa and 4 other Japanese cities to trade, granted extraterritoriality to foreigners, and it was signed on the deck of USS Powhatan in Edo, New Tokyo Bay, on July 29, 1858. The 1960 treaty, which took effect on June 23, 1960, revised and replaced an earlier version of the treaty, which had been signed in 1951 in conjunction with the signing of the Japanese Peace Treaty in San Francisco that terminated the World War II in Asia, as well as the US-led occupation of Japan 1945 to 1952. Now, this peace treaty was being celebrated in many countries also as understanding the diplomatic relations between the two countries. India signed with Japan in 1952 a diplomatic peace treaty. The revision of the treaty in 1960 was opposed to its passage, led to massive Anpo protests, which were the largest popular protests in Japan's history. And the 2 stamps that you see are, you can see the treaty is being signed, and the ship is was a Maru. Which Maru is this? It's 1860, 1960 the stamps, as well as souvenir sheet, which was released in 1960, September 27, 120 by 76 millimeters, blue, green, brown, Cayman and indigo, 2 stamps. And they're also a part of the souvenir sheet, and no watermark, and it is printed on Reese's printing. Okay, so this treaty 1960, this took effect, so June 23rd, so the stamp was released to commemorate that. Now, international wait a minute. International Conference of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and opening of the Diet Building. The commemorative issue you can see is 2 stamps. One is the Mount Fuji, what we call as Akafuji round, the red Fuji, and with the parliamentary diet building. And the other one is the seating of people in the parliamentary building. And that's how they are. The House of Councillors 245. The government consists of 146. and House of Representatives 465. Government is formed with 293. That's a time the national diet, what you call as Kokai Jido, 208th session in national diet. That's a time the membership of these two houses are shown here. And you also see the metallic engraved sample of that stamp, the Akafuji and the diet building. The other one is diet seating that's given here. The commemorative historical international conference of Interparliamentary Union opening of the diet building on September 27, 1960, attended by representatives from 58 member countries. The following special postage stamps were released. Okay, and the 5N seat plan of the diet, 10N diet building and Mount Fuji. Okay. Okay. The next is Interparliamentary Union. This is 1889 Interparliamentary Union was established. The IPU, the Interparliamentary Union, is a global organization of national parliaments. They empower parliaments and parliamentarians to promote peace, democracy, and sustainable development. The Interparliamentary Union, IPU, is an international organization of the national parliaments. Its primary purpose is to promote democratic governance, accountability, and cooperation among its members. Other initiatives include advancing gender parity among legislatures, empowering youth participation in politics, and sustainable development. The organization was established in 1889 as the Interparliamentary Congress. So that's the Interparliamentary.
Sir, your line is muted. Nagasan, the line is muted. Yes.
It's important to me. If unmute ஆயிருக்கா?
Yes, sir.
போன ஸ்லைடு மியூட் ஆச்சு. அதுல போன ஸ்லைட்ல இருந்து பண்ணலாம். அதுக்கு முந்தின ஸ்லைட்ல பண்ணலாமா?
ஆமா சார்.
Okay. International Conference of Interparliamentary Union and opening of the Diet Building, though it might have been already showed to you, since suddenly there was a problem, technical snag that I got muted, so I'm repeating this slide. If you already heard it, I'm sorry. Please kindly bear with me. The National Diet, what we call as COCAI, in 2008, 208th session of the National Diet is here. 245 members in the House of Councillors. The government was formed with 146 people minimum you need, and House of Representative, and you need to have 293 members, and the government is formed out of 465 people agreed is what the government is formed with. Okay. The commemorative issue is a historical international conference of the Interparliamentary Union. Opening is the Diet Building. The IPU we will talk about in the next slide. What is this Interparliamentary Union for which the stamp has been released on September 27, 1960. It was attended by representatives from 58 member countries. Following special postage stamps were issued on this. You can see two of them. One is a 5N, which is showing the seating in the Diet Building and seat plans, the seating plan of the Diet Building. Other one is Akafuji and The diet, though they are not very well near, the stamp is the commemorative stamp. So the design shows Fuji as well as diet building together, and down below is the same with a metallic engraved sample size. And what is IPU? IPU is a global organization of national parliaments. They empower parliaments and parliamentarians to promote peace, democracy, and sustainable development. The Inter-Parliamentary Union, IPU, is an international organization of national parliaments. Its primary purpose is to promote democratic governance, accountability, and cooperation among its members. Other initiatives include advancing gender parity among legislatures, empowering youth participation in politics, and sustainable development. The organization was established in 1889 as the Inter-Parliamentary Congress with the symbol shown above in the picture. The diet, also called as the Imperial Diet, Japanese Kokai National Assembly, or Teikoku Gikai Imperial Assembly, the national legislature of Japan. Under the Meiji Constitution of 1889, the Imperial Diet was established on the basis of few houses with co-equal powers. The upper house, or the House of Peers, Kizokuin, was almost wholly appointive. The House of Representatives, 465 members, are elected from 118 electoral districts. So you can see the two stamps. They are issued on 1960, December 24th, 30 by 26 millimeter size, and they had no watermarks, printed in photogravure and with ordinary gum, and they are two colors, gray multicolor and caramel. And the 50th anniversary of the first Japanese Antarctic expedition. This is a very interesting thing. Nobu Shirase, 20th July 1861 to 4 September 1946, that is this period, was a Japanese army officer and explorer. He led the first Japanese Antarctic expedition in 1910 to 1912, which reached a southern latitude of 80.5 and made the first landing in the coast of King Edward VII Land. Shirase had harbored polar ambitions since boyhood. By way of preparation during his military service, he participated in an expedition to the Northern Kuril Islands. Northern Kuril Islands are a part of the Japanese geography, and there is always a claim between Japan and USSR on that. This venture was poorly organized and ended badly, but nonetheless provided him with a useful training for future polar exploration. His long-standing intention was to lead an expedition to North Pole, but when the mark was claimed by Robert Peary in 1909, Shirase switched his attention to the south. So you can see Shirase in the stamp, and which is released 1960, number 29, 30 by 26 millimeter, printed in photogravure, and also the first day cover, which has been posted, and with the postal cancellation, you can see that. And then 25th anniversary of Radio Japan. On 1st 1935, for the first time, Nihon Hoso Kyokai beamed its international broadcasting under the name Radio Japan. Commemorating its 25th year, a stamp was issued on 1960, June 1st. You can see the beautiful Carmen Rose stamp, and it's printed in Reese. And this stamp is for the 20th anniversary of Radio Japan. You can see a cover with a cancellation for that and the information card that is kept inside. The 75th anniversary of Japanese emigration to Hawaii. Okay. On February 8, 1885, about 900 Japanese immigrants arrived in Hawaii. Today, about 14% of Hawaii's population was Japanese ancestry. Most of the immigrants aboard the city of Tokyo were men. The ship was called as City of Tokyo, and they came looking for greater financial opportunities and quickly found work in Hawaii's enormous sugarcane plantation. Japanese immigrants performed backbreaking labor weeding and cutting sugarcane. In 1968, the first year Emperor Meiji's reign, the first group of migrant workers from Japan traveled to Hawaii. They became known as Gennon Mono, literally meaning first year people. This is also the first time the group of workers from Japan emigrated to another country. The Hawaiian Kingdom's Board of Immigration had asked Eugene Van Reed, an American merchant who had served as the Hawaiian consul in Japan, to recruit contract labor to work in the cane fields. And you can see the stamp that was released in 1960, August 28, 30 by 26, a standard size, printed in photo view and multicolor stamp. Then 50th anniversary of Japan Aviation. Now it's the stamp is there, and the first day posted, and with a postage cancellation, you can see that. On 19 December 1910, Tokugawa flew Japan's first successful powered aircraft from Yoyogi Parade Ground, where Tokyo's Yoyogi Park is now located, only 7 years after the Wright brothers' flight in United States. On 5th April 1911, Tokugawa piloted the inaugural flight from Japan's first permanent airfield, which is in Tokorozawa, a place where I lived also. This stamp was released in 1960, September 20th, 26 by 30 standard size, and printed in photogravure. Then the 90th anniversary of Japan Postal Service, and you all know who is this gentleman, the father of Japanese Post, Baron Maejima. The stamp was issued for the 90th anniversary of Japan Postal Services. It shows Baron Maejima Isoka, founder of the Japanese postal system, which was established in 1872. This stamp, Tenyan stamp, was issued on 1961, April 20th, and 22 by 26 millimeters, and it's a black and olive green stamp, photogravure, and Tenyan. Then the 52nd Convention of Rotary International Tokyo. The first Rotary Club in Japan grew out of meeting in America between two Japanese businessmen, Kisaji Fukushima, Umekichi Yoneyama. The Rotary Club of Tokyo was chartered on April 1st, 1921. Fukushima was working in Dallas and joined the Rotary Club there. Yoneyama was managing director of Mitsubishi Bank Limited, was in the United States periodically during the period 1917 to 1918 as a part of the special financial delegation organized by the Japanese government to explore economic and industrial opportunities between two countries. During one of those trips, Fukushima introduced him to Rotary. By early 1920, Fukushima returned to Japan. The two men joined 22 others in organizing the Tokyo Club. 40 years later, Tokyo Club was organized 52nd Rotary Convention in Japan. So this is in Tokyo. You can see the stamp that was released in 1961. Asian Boy Scout Jamboree 1962. Nearly 25,000 Boy Scouts from 18 countries participated in the third Asian Boy Scout Jamboree, which opened on August 3rd at Takigahara at the foot of Mount Fuji in Japan. A stamp was released in 1962, and you can also see the first day postal cover with the first day cancellation of a Boy Scout. And the stamp that is released shows you the Boy Scouts hat and Scouts symbol or the emblem of Scouts is also there on the picture. And this is for the Asian Jamboree, 1962, August 3rd was the stamp release, printed in photogravure. Then 5th International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage in Tokyo. The International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage, ICID, established 1950, is a leading scientific, technical, international, non-profit, non-governmental organization. ICID is a professional network of experts from across the world in the field of irrigation, drainage, and flood management. The main mission was to promote sustainable agricultural water management to achieve water secure world free of poverty and hunger through sustainable rural development. The fifth International Commission was held in Tokyo from 14th May 1963 to 21st May 1963 and discussed on flood control, flood prevention, economics and financing of irrigation, etc. This stamp, blue in color, was released in 1963, May 15, 26 by 30 millimeters, and it's a commemorative stamp. The comb was 13 and a half, photogravure printing, and that's a very nice, beautiful stamp that you see. 75th anniversary of Japanese Standard Time. Before Meiji era 1868 to 1912, each local region had its own time zone, which is noon, in which noon was when sun was exactly at its culmination. As modern transportation methods such as trains were adopted this practice, and it became a source of confusion too. In 1886, Ordinance 51 was issued in response to this problem. Ordinance 51 on the precise calculation of time using prime meridian, July 13, 1886, and the prime meridian passes through England's Greenwich Observatory. Longitudes are calculated using prime meridian, counting 180 degrees either east or west. Positive degrees are east, negative degrees are on the west. To commemorate that, this stamp was issued 1961, July 12. And it's a multicolor stamp and photogravure printing. You can see the globe as well as the rays of sun that's coming up. The 75th anniversary of Japanese Standard Time. You can also see there's a first day cover with the stamp capsule. Longitude calculated using prime meridian, using counting 180 degrees either east or west. On January 1st, 1888, 135 degrees east longitude will be set as a standard meridian for all of Japan, allowing the precise time to be fixed. Akashi Planetarium, located nearly 135 degrees east longitude and known as a symbol of Japan Standard Time. According to this, the standard time, Hyojin-ji, was set 9 hours ahead of GMT. In the ordinance, the first clause mentions GMT, and the second defines east longitude and west longitude, and third says standard time zone, which would be in effect from 1888. The city of Akashi in Hyogo Prefecture is located exactly at 135 degrees east longitude and subsequently became known as the Tokinomachi, the town of time. Then the 100th anniversary of Red Cross. 1877, the society was founded by Count Tsunetami Sano as the Philanthropic Society during the Battles of Southwestern Rebellion. To adhere to the Geneva Convention of 1864. The society's first hospital was established in Tokyo. 1887, the Philanthropic Society changed its name to Japan Red Cross Society and was recognized such by the International Committee of Red Cross on 2nd September 1887. Okay, and you can see there are two stamps that were released. One was for the centenary of the Red Cross concept, 1963, May 8th, this was released. Another one is 1969, June 24th. Again, this is, you can see, one green and red color stamp. It's a normal paper stamp that is released. The other one is the photogravure printing. This is printing was done by photogravure for this also. Shows people carrying a wounded in the Red Cross. 50th anniversary of the establishment of the Girl Scouts in Tokyo. Girl Scouting was first introduced in Japan in 1999 and 1920 took the name Joshihodo Dan, Girl Guides of Japan. In 1828, Japan became the founder member of WAGGAS, WAGGGS. Girl guiding was banned by the government during the World War II, restarted as Girl Scouting in 1947. It was officially recognized as Girl Scouts of Japan. Okay. Garisakunato Nippon rename. Rinmei in 1949. In 2000, Her Highness Princess Sayako attended a variety of events in the Tokyo metropolitan area and in regional Japan, including the ceremony of the 50th anniversary of the establishing the Girl Scouts in Tokyo and opening ceremony of the Tokuguchi Girl Scouts Center to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Girl Scouting movement in Japan. To commemorate that, the stamp was released in 1970, July 26, printed in photogravure, same standard 26 by 30 millimeters standard size. Girl Guide Asian Camp at Tokyo. Girl Guides Scout program in Japan focused on three major points: self-development, human relations, and nature. Some of the Girl Scouts activities include working with the disabled, planting trees, and promoting environment from the floods and air pollution. You can see a Girl Scout saluting under a banner, and also you can see a metallic imbued first day cover with a stamp and the cancellation, and that's a Girl Scouts Asian Camp commemorative stamp, which is a information, this thing which is there. Girl Scouts in Japan will be hosts of the continuous Girl Scouts and who are coming from Asian countries and Australia, New Zealand, United States, Canada, etc. that border the Pacific to take part in the first Asian camp to be held in Japan this summer at the Togaguchi Heights in Nagano Prefecture. To commemorate this event, a special postage stamp with the following description was released. So that goes inside the metallic embossed cover, and they're called the Asian Camp for Girl Scouts of Japan. 14th General Assembly International Scientific Radio Union. The International Scientific Radio Union, better known as URSC, an abbreviation derived from the French name Union Radio Scientifique Internationale, is one of the oldest in the family of scientific unions, comprising the International Council of Scientific Unions, ICSU. The union was founded in 1913 under the title International Commission of Scientific Wireless Telegraphy and celebrated its Golden Jubilee in 1963 in conjunction with the General Assembly held in Tokyo. The history of the union and the development of its commission and program and the worldwide services were recorded in the URSI Golden Jubilee Memorial Volume published by the URSI Secretariat in 1963. This stamp was released on September 9, 1963, and the stamp is 26 by 30 millimeters size, printed in photogravure. Coin-like emblems, IMF and IBRD, the annual general meeting of the International Monetary Fund and International Bank for Reconstruction, that is the expansion of IMF and IBRD, and development, International Financial Corporation and International Development Association, Tokyo. So you can see the coins there. In 1964, September 7, this is released, same standard size, 36 by 26 millimeter stamp. Then we have the centenary of the International Telecommunication Union, ITU. The International Telecommunication Union is a specialized agency of the United Nations responsible for many matters related to the information communication technologies. It was established on 17th May 1865 as the International Telegraph Union, making it the oldest UN agency. The ITU is initially aimed in helping connect telegraphic networks between the countries, which is a mandate consistently broadening the advent of new communications technologies. It adopted current name in 1934 to reflect its expanded responsibilities for radio and telephone. This stamp was released in 1965, May 17, again a standard size 36 by 26 in horizontal format and no watermark stamp, commemorated Home 13.5 and printed in photogravure, normal gum. The 25th Maritime Day. The Maritime Day, Umi no Hi, also known as the Ocean Day or the Sea Day, is a public holiday in Japan, celebrated on third Monday in July. The purpose of the holiday is to give thanks to the ocean's bounty and consider the importance of the ocean to Japan as a maritime nation. Many people take advantage of this holiday and summer weather to take a beach trip. Other ocean-related festivals are observed as well. The date roughly coincides with the end of the rainy season in much of the Japan mainland. The stamp shows the imperial yacht Meiji Maru in 1876 and the Japanese seagulls flying around the Meiji Maru, which was released. This stamp was released in 19. Stamp was released in 19. Wait a minute. 1965, July 20th. The stamp shows the imperial yacht called the Meiji Maru and the Japanese seagulls. And International Cooperation Year, ICU, and the 20th anniversary of UNO. The UN is established after World War II with the aim of preventing future wars. Succeeding rather, this UNO succeeded as a very ineffective League of Nations. On 25th April 1945, 50 governments met in San Francisco for a conference and started drafting a UN charter, which was adopted on 25th June 1945 and took effect from 24th October 1945 when the UN began its operation. The stamp was released and 1965, June 26th, and you can see this stamp in 29 by 28 millimeter common size, photo give you printed, and beautiful birds flying around. The 9th conference of IEEA. The stamp shows Takai Atomic Power Station commemorating the 9th General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IEEA, Tokyo, September 21st to 28th. IEEA is the World Center for Cooperation in the nuclear field and seeks to promote safe, secure, and peaceful use of nuclear technologies. Delegates from the United States, America, France, Belgium, Ghana, Philippines, Israel, Uruguay, Finland, and Japan participated. So the stamp was released by Japan in 1965, September 25th, and 30 by 26, all the standard format. And then the 75th anniversary of national suffrage, the 75th anniversary of national suffrage, 40th anniversary of universal suffrage, and 20th anniversary of women's suffrage. Suffrage is representing in representative government is the right to vote in electing public officials and adopting, rejecting proposal legislation. The history of suffrage or franchise is one of the gradual expansion from limited privileged groups in society to entire adult population. Nearly all modern governments have provided for universal adult suffrage. It is regarded as more than privilege extended by the state to its citizens, and it is rather thought of as an inalienable right that inherits to every adult citizen by virtue of citizenship. It democratizes the primary means of ensuring governments and responsible government. On April 10, 1946, Japanese women for the first time used their right to vote in the first post-war House of Representatives election. The ratio of female candidates to the total was 2.9%. All the 39 female candidates won in the election, accounting for 8.4% of the lower house seats. And you can see this stamp released on 1965, October 15, same standard size 30 by 26 millimeters, and no watermark stamp. And commemorative stamps, the comb 13.5 and printed in photogravure and ordinary gum. The 75th anniversary of telephone service in Japan, the Nippon Telegraphic Telephone Corporation, Nippon Denshin Denwa Kabushiki Kaisha, commonly known as NTT, is a Japanese telecommunication company headquartered in Tokyo, Japan. In 1877, 1 year after the invention of Alexander Graham Bell, the telephone became available in Japan. At first, it was also reserved for the government, public affairs organizations such as police and a few business. Not until 1890, the telephone services became available to the general public. Lines were laid between Tokyo and Yokohama, connecting 155 Tokyo subscribers to 42 in Yokohama. The first long distance service became available in 1899 between Tokyo and Osaka, and discussion began to how the telephone industry could best be developed. And 1889, the government approved state-run telephonic system also. You can see the stamp, 1965, December 16th. This was released, 26 by 30 mm standard size. Photography and rest are like the same. For Japanese youth goodwill cruise and celebration of the centenary of the Meiji era. The International Youth Exchange Program of the Cabinet Office, Government of Japan, started in 1859 by launching the Japanese Youth Goodwill Mission Program, proposed by the then Prime Minister Nobusuke Kishi, to commemorate the royal wedding of the Emperor, His Majesty the Emperor, who was His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince then. In 1967, the Japanese Youth Goodwill Program, cruise program, began as one of the commemorative programs of the centennial of the Meiji Restoration. Both the Japanese Goodwill Mission Program and the Japanese Goodwill Cruise Program were projects which provided big dreams and hopes for many Japanese youths. And you can see the boy and girl with the boat, the ship that carried the Goodwill Mission around the globe. It was released in 1968, January 19th, 36 by 26, and no watermark, photogravure printed. And this ship normally comes most of the ports, including the Indian port. Centenary is the first Western style lighthouse in Japan. Called Todai in Japanese, lighthouse have become a romantic part of Japan's coastal landscape. Nippon TV takes a look at lighthouses in Japan in 150 years after the first one was lit in 1869. The first Western style lighthouse was lit in 1869, and 13 were built to make recently opened ports safer. And there are 3,181 now stand around the country. 150 years after the first being lit, some of Japan's lighthouses are being extinguished also. This stamp was released in 1968 and November 1st, 30 by 26, a very standard size stamp and photography printed. 50th anniversary of ILO. It was created in 1919 as a part of Treaty of Versailles that ended World War I to reflect the belief that the universal and lasting peace can be accomplished only if it is based on the social justice. The only repatriated UN agency since 1990, the ILO brings together governments, employees, and workers of 187 member states to set labor standards, develop policies, and devise programs promoting decent work for all men and women. Stamp released in 1969, November 26, the same standard size 30 by 26, and you can see the man wearing a helmet, a worker's helmet with the ILO symbol printed on that. The 8th International Conference on Otohino-Laranji, what's it? Otohino, oh, I give up. And 11th International Conference of Pediatrics. These medical terms are very confusing. Okay. This guy who has got this confusing thing is a doctor that specializes in treating conditions that affect the ears, nose, and throat, as well as head and neck surgery. Specialists in the field have been organized since 1896, making it the oldest medical specialty in the US. In addition to being a medical doctor, he is also a surgeon who can perform operations to help treat conditions affect the delicate tissues of ear, nose, and throat. Pediatrics is a branch of medicine that involves in medical care of infants, children, and adolescents and young adults. The Medical Internal Conference in these areas was held in Japan, 1965 October, and on the October 30th, this stamp was released, a multicolor stamp was released, and of course, 39 by 28 millimeter because it's horizontal format. The 20th anniversary of UNESCO. UNESCO and Japan, the non-governmental UNESCO movement, was born in Sendai, Japan, 19th July 1947. The first objective of this movement was to promote Japan's affiliation to UNESCO. The subsequent establishment of Sendai UNESCO Cooperative Association, the peace movement spread rapidly across Japan on account of people's passion and dedication to peace in the aftermath of the World War II. As a result of this successful movement, Japan was admitted to UNESCO in 1953, 5 years before it became a member of the United Nations. And you can see the beautiful stamp with the UN logo. 1966, July 2nd, this was released, 26 by 30 millimeters, and comb 13.5, photogravure printed, ordinary gum, everything else is like a standard this thing. And this UN booklet shows a non-government UNESCO movement in Japan with Mount Fuji and its reflection in the waters of the rivers, in the 5 rivers near Fuji. The 11th Pacific Science Congress, the Pacific Science Association, PSA, is a regional, non-governmental scholarly organization that seeks to advance science and technology in support of sustainable development in the Pacific Rim. It was founded in 1920. Its secretary is based in Bishop Museum in Honolulu, United States. PSA provides the interdisciplinary platform for scientists to discuss and review common concerns and priorities of the region. Though our scientific network, PSA links through scientific network, PSA links scientists from the developed countries with those from the developing countries, including archipelago and more remote states of Pacific. The 11th Congress was hosted in Japan in 1966. The stamp was released 1966, August 2nd. The 11th Pacific Science Congress is what is written on the stamp also. Then the 50th anniversary of Japanese Office of Life Insurance, Post Office Life Insurance Services. The Post Office Life Insurance Service scheme with 122 trillion US dollar, 1.1 trillion policies and 40% Japanese households life insurance asset is larger than the 4 largest private competitors combined. This is what we are talking about, the figures of 1966 or 1916 is also the commenced 1916 commenced the post life insurance business, and by 1966 it has reached this site. And postal savings and post life insurance together hold a quarter of Japan's personal financial assets. This stamp shows the family, she's enjoying the benefits of this, and the 30 by 26 millimeter stamp with no watermark and printed photogravure. International Year of Rice, 1966. In 1963, intermittent food shortages and threat of famine, especially in Asia, led FO's Freedom for Hunger campaign. A major contributor to the campaign's success was the release of the high-yielding variety IR8 by the International Rice Research Institute, IRRI, in 1966. This resulted in the Green Revolution and many rice-producing countries in the three decades that followed. More food was produced and hunger and poverty were reduced. Japan was a rice-producing country. In Asia, released a stamp commemorating the International Rice Year in 1966. The stamp shows International Rice Year, a 15 yen stamp in the month of November 21st, 26 by 36 millimeter standard size, no watermark, commemorative stamp with a perforation of comb 13.5 and printed photogravure, and it is done by photogravure with ordinary gum and normal paper. Then we have the Meiji centenary in 1968. The Meiji era is an era of Japanese history that extended from October 23rd, 1868 to July 30th, 1912. Meiji era was the first half of the Empire of Japan, when the Japanese people moved from being an isolated feudal society at the risk of colonization by the Western powers to the new paradigm of the modern Japan. The stamps show the centenary emblem and the Emperor's Palace in Tokyo and His Majesty's carriage. You have seen two stamps are there, one in vertical format, one is in horizontal format. One is 28 by 39 millimeters, it's a vertical. Other one is 39 by 28, this is horizontal format. Both are 15 yen, commemorative printing, photogravure, and ordinary gum. And that's the two stamps that you see. Centenary of Telegraphic Service in Japan. In 1832, Kurishige was appointed by the Bakufu government, the feudal government of Japan, to accompany an official procession from Edo to Kyoto and the residence of the emperor along with the Tokaido Road. The artist made many sketches during the journeys, resulting in the production of the most acclaimed series, 53 stations of the Tokaido Road in the next 2 years. This series received a huge commercial success. It is rare from an artist and regular people as well. In regular people as well in general, to be able to travel and sketch landscape from life rather than the imagination during the Edo period. If not for disappointment by the government, this kind of journey would have been almost impossible for him to undertake. You see the beautiful stamp, artwork by Horishige, and in 1970, October 20th, this is the stamp was released, and it is 26 by 36. Others are like any other standard stamp. Then comes the 1970, 14th March, Osaka Expo. A series of stamps are released. You can see there are two stamps in the vertical format, one in the horizontal format. And you also see these are all released as individual stamps, as well as all the three together as Saturn and pair. You can see them released on 1970, March 14, 26 by 36. And the horizontal thing is the largest stamp, which is 51 by 36. There are multicolor commemorated, all printed in photogravure. And the Saturn is very interestingly, all the three stamps are connected together as one set of Saturn stamps. Now, Osaka Expo 1970 was a world fair held in Suita, Osaka Prefecture, Japan, between March 15 and September 13, 1970. The theme was Progress and Harmony for Mankind. In Japanese, Expo 70 is often referred to as the Osaka Bumpaku. The stamp shows Sakura processing the spirit of Japan and circling the globe, fireworks on Expo, and Sun Tower and the Osaka waterways below. The final and stamp shows the flowers by the Korin Ogata. You please see, look at the souvenir sheet, which is 300 yens value, released in 1970, March 14, multicolor. And also these stamps together in Saturn and pair, they were also released as a booklet pair, which consisted of all the stamps together, which is valued at 100 yens totally. The set of stamps on 15 June 1970. You can see Osaka was chosen as a site in the 1970 World Exposition by the Bureau of International Day Exposition in 1965. 330 hectares of Sendai Hills outside Osaka was being earmarked for this site. And you can see the 3 commemorative stamps that were released. And the last stamp is the beautiful grass in autumn wind. You can see the grass moving around in the wind, very beautifully done. Then these stamps were released 1970 in the month of June 15th. The earlier set was released in March. This set was released in June. And the stamps are 26 by 36 and 51 by 36 is the largest stamp. And there's a booklet pen which has got all the stamps in that. And Osaka Expo has had 2 main principles in the master plan. The first was the idea of the wisdom of all people in the world would come together in this place and simulate ideas. Second was that it will be less than an exposition and more of a festival. And the logo itself, the central motive was that of sakura, you can see that. And then our cherry blossom, the national flower of Japan, and a motive that could be recognized by the internet audience. Its 5 petals were attributed the values of 5 continents interlinked by the circular arrangement participating in the Japan World Expo. The circle at the center represented Japan, with the surrounding space being the place where ideas flourished. The 4th UN Congress Crime Prevention 1970 in Kyoto. The 4th UN Crime Congress 1970, 17th to 26 August 1970, was the first non-European country to host the UN Crime Congress. In 2021, the UN Crime Congress returned to Kyoto after half a century. Defense against crime should be an integral part of the national planning. United Nations Congress on Crime Prevention was being held. The prevention of crime and the treatment of offenders cannot be effectively undertaken, and the delegates agreed, unless it's closely and intimately related to social and economic trends. This stamp was released in 1970, August 17, 30 by 26 millimeters, multicolor, no watermark, commemorative stamp, printed in photogravure, 15 yens. Then the 15th anniversary of United Nations in 1970, October 1990, and the United Nations Secretary General U Thant cuts a birthday cake to celebrate the 25th anniversary at the 25th session of the General Assembly. You can see the commemorative coin down below. The 2 stamps were released 1970, October 24th, 29 by 26 and 29 by 28.5 stamp size. Then 1971, 25th anniversary of women's suffrage. The Women's Suffrage League was founded in 1924, the same year that the Japanese government enacted men's suffrage law without extending the vote to women. Women's suffrage in Japan can trace its beginning back to democratization brought about by the Meiji Restoration, with the suffrage movement rising prominence during the Taisho period. The first election by the universal suffrage without distinction of the gender was held in 1946, but it was not until 1947, when the Constitution of post-war Japan came into effect, that universal suffrage was established in Japan. This stamp is released 1971. You can see the Diet building and the lady with the vote being dropped into the vote box. Okay, 1971, April 10th was the stamp, but the stamp was 25 by 30.3 millimeters and multicolor commemorative stamps, and it's a 15 yen stamp. Then 25 years of Bird Protection Week. In Japan, laws have been passed to protect birds during the late 1800s and early years of 20th century. Prince Nobusuke Takatsukasa in his 1941 tourist library guide on Japanese birds, for example, claiming that bird protection in Japan dated back to the reign of Emperor Kamu, 1781 to 1805, listed 19 category of birds, including cranes, cormorants, and egrets that are specifically protected in 1919 law as a national monument. Okay, this is called the Takatsuka Kasa in 1941. Then the 10th years Antarctic Treaty, 1971. Antarctic Treaty and related agreements, collectively known as Antarctic Treaty System, regulate the international relations with respect to Antarctica as only continent without a native human population. The main treaty was opened for signature on December 1st, 1959, and officially entered into force on June 23rd, 1961. The original signatories were 12 countries active in Antarctica during the International Geophysical Year IGU of 1957 and 58. These countries established over 55 Antarctic research stations for the IGY, and subsequent promulgation of the treaty has been seen as a diplomatic expression of the operational scientific cooperation that has been achieved. As of 2019, the treaty had 54 parties. And you can see the picture of king penguins walking around in Antarctica. This stamp was released 1971, June 23rd, multicolor commemorative, and printed photograph view. And 50th anniversary of Japanese arbitration system, 1971. Japan was occupied by 7 years from 1945 to 1952 by the Allied forces. The occupation authorities' anti-monopoly policy was not compatible with these trade associations and the dispute settlement function. Thus, a law of 1948 prohibited arbitration by all trade organizations except the arbitration service by the Japan Shipping Exchange, JSC. The organization was formed in 1921 after English model and started maritime arbitration service in 1926. JSC arbitration came to the brink of extinction, but was somehow able to survive the post-war crisis, perhaps thanks to the English origin of this law. The more general arbitration constitution, the Japan Commercial Arbitration Association, JCAA, was later formed in 1952. They have a beautiful stamp with the red road standing in the middle of a ring. It was released 1971, October 1st, 30 by 26, commemorative stamp printed in photogravure on normal paper. Then we have the family registration centenary of National Family Registration System. Japan's Koseki family registration system is a prime example of this difference, one that particularly hard for Americans to understand. The Koseki used to register births, marriages, divorces, deaths, adoptions, and other charges in personal family status. The extent of the extract of the personal Koseki issued by the appropriate municipal office serves as official proof of the marital status, parenthood, and adoptive relationship. Japan celebrated 100 years of the establishment of Koseki system in 1871. This stamp was released 1971, October 27, 30 by 26, multicolor stamp. It's a commemorative stamp. And one more. The 50th anniversary of the scouting in Japan. Scouting was the first introduced in Japan by a professor in Hiroshima College in 1909. However, it was not until 1915 that scouting started to spread around the country. The Federation of Boy Scouts of Japan formed in 1922 and became one of the founding members of the International Scout Conference. This stamp, a Boy Scout saluting his leader in 1972, November 4th was released. 36 by 26 multicolor stamp commemorative printed photograph view. And that's the last. Thank you for joining us today, and see you in the next coming Saturday.